Frank Zane, or as his friends called him, Frank, won 3 straight Mr. Olympia titles and 5 Mr. Universe titles, including 1 victory over Arnold, one of only 3 people to ever hand him a loss. Before the era of monsters that succeeded him, Frank wasn't known for his size, but rather than for having one of the most aesthetic physiques in history, with his emphasis on proportionality and symmetry, competition weight of under 200 pounds, and his iconic vacuum pose. He earned his nickname the Chemist by getting a bachelor's degree in chemistry, teaching chemistry and math for over a decade, and for his popularization of supplementing with amino acids for building and maintaining muscle growth. I was never a big guy. At 16, I hit my current height of 5'8" and only weighed 130 pounds, so I never felt like becoming a monster was realistic. Or honestly anything I wanted. I grew up on Dragon Ball Z and those guys were shredded. And even though Arnold and Serge Nubret overall had 2 of the best physiques of all time in my opinion, I didn't have their frames. So after learning about all the all-time greats, studying their physiques and workout routines, philosophies and goals, I landed on the Chemist Frank Zane to be my role model. And that's what this series is about, discussing the exercises and diet required to sculpt your physique like an idol that you likely already have, and also discussing the philosophies and mindset of the athlete so that you can decide for yourself what you want to emulate, what you'd modify, and what you'd downright do the opposite. Maybe they consume 200 grams of protein per day and that makes sense to you, so you do that too. But maybe they went to the gym twice every day and you only have time to lift once per day. Or maybe you are a fan of veggies.
I didn't eat vegetables. Huh? I didn't like them.
During Frank's Mr. Olympia years between 1974 and 1983, he worked out as follows. He worked out 3 out of every 4 days with a split of push, legs, pull. He typically lifted in the 8 to 15 rep range, starting with 12 or 15 reps on the first set, then pyramiding down to 8 or 10 by the 4th set. He only rested for about 45 to 60 seconds between sets, taking time to stretch rather than check his smartphone because smartphones weren't invented yet. The 2 consistent exceptions to his 8 to 15 rep range were calves with about double that rep range, and abs, wherein he'd do at least 400 total reps of abs with no rest, ramping up the number to 1,000 as he got closer to contest time. He would often have to come back to the gym in the afternoon to complete those reps, since it would usually take him a half hour to do it. And the exception to all the above framework are supersets and trisets. Frank loved his supersets and trisets primarily to bring out muscular definition, which segues nicely into... As his nickname suggests, the Chemist thinks like a scientist. He asked questions, he did background research, constructed hypotheses, tested those hypotheses with experimentation, modified the experiment if need be, analyzed the data and drew conclusions, saw if the conclusions aligned with his hypothesis, then used his findings to create a new hypothesis and experiment to begin the cycle again. Many lifters have simple, yet equally demanding, lifting philosophies, but few match Frank's attention to detail and thirst for knowledge, and his commitment to wellness. That's Frank in a nutshell. Now let's talk about how his unusual approach to lifting led to specific lifting quirks. Like Arnold, Frank put an emphasis on practicing vacuums as a way to expand the ribcage and train the waist to be tighter. Arnold recommended practicing vacuums to improve one's control over their core, lest they get caught with their gut relaxing on stage. But really the practice of vacuums is a logical conclusion starting with the question, how do I increase the proportion between my shoulders and waist? Can you get too big? If you ask Frank, he'd say yes, because size isn't the goal to him, proportion is. Proportionality does include symmetry, balance between the left side and right, but good proportion means that every body part is developed and nothing is overdeveloped in relation to everything else. So Frank recommends studying your silhouette. Look at your physique from 40 feet and note which body parts jump out at you. A perfectly proportioned body would have all areas equally developed so that no one body part stands out. Ideally, they should all stand out individually, and when taken as a whole, they should be even more impressive. He recalls weighing between 195 to 200 pounds for Mr. Universe in 1972, but lamented that most of that weight came from his massive thighs after a season of heavy squats with Arnold, doing 405 for 10 reps. But later at the 1979 Mr. Olympia, he weighed 191, with smaller, more defined thighs and a more muscular upper body. Better proportion in his eyes. And since size is not the ultimate goal, heavy weight is not a requirement. Frank champions lighter weight that you can fully control. Lighter weight allows for much better squeezing and therefore pumps and definition for developing more compact muscle. Greater control allows for more precise targeting and shaping within muscle groups. And lifting lighter helps prevent injuries and excessive soreness. He and I would also say that lifting lighter is more fun. When you're not going that heavy, there's less dead time between sets, meaning that you get to spend more time actually lifting. And what's more fun than lifting? And in the 45 to 60 seconds in between sets, you can stretch your muscles to improve circulation and deepen your range of motion, which increases the amount of muscle fibers that you can engage. Frank and Arnold stretched constantly between sets. A chiseled core comes from rigorous training daily. Frank's 400 to 1,000 reps of abs were mentioned earlier, but he also regularly performed superhuman feats such as sitting in the Roman chair for up to 2.5 hours. So to get abs like Frank's, start with an obtainable goal, perhaps 400 reps of abs every day, and ramp up from there as you're able, focusing on high volume and intensity with low weight, usually body weight. Bulking and cutting cycles are extremely common. For the average gym goer, the ideal imagined scenario is gaining mass during the colder holiday months, then shedding the fat for beach season, revealing the new quality muscle that was hopefully developed during the bulk. And it's common for professional bodybuilders to jump 30 to as much as 100 pounds in the off-season before rubber banding back to 4% body fat. But Frank advocates against bulking of any sort. In his blog post from August 3rd, 2024, he says, "Quality muscle takes time to develop. It's better to add not more than 5 pounds of solid muscle a year by training and eating right than to gain 30 or 40 pounds of surplus tissue, much of which is fat and water retention. When you train down and lose the excess bulk, you will most likely find yourself in the same place where you started, often a year later, a year wasted." He goes on to say that unless you are a teenager with an ample supply of hormones or are using high dosages of anabolic steroids, putting on a lot of muscle in a brief period of time isn't really feasible. And in addition to the obvious health risks of steroids, muscle obtained in a hurry never results in shapely muscles or good proportions. Now, if this were a video on how to roleplay as Frank Zane in the hopes of looking exactly like him, this would be the part where we'd talk about copying his training routines. But since no one else will ever look exactly like Frank Zane again, because no one else will ever be Frank Zane besides the Frank Zane, let's summarize what we can learn from his philosophies and how we can apply them to our own. Either emulate what you agree with, modify the philosophies to suit your own goals, preferences, and limitations, or discard what doesn't resonate with you. Frank valued proportionality above absolute mass and sheer strength. However, that doesn't mean they weren't all important to him. Just as a powerlifter who optimizes for strength also wants to be big to support his strength and proportional to avoid injury, Frank was optimized for proportionality, but was certainly massive by most people's standards and strong to boot. His PR on deadlifts was 555 pounds for 5 reps. And you can optimize for either proportionality, strength, or size, but whichever you value most, be conscious of how much you want to prioritize the other two. And should you choose to prioritize proportionality, reflect on your silhouette to bring to your attention what areas of your physique are your strengths and to what areas you should focus. Frank aimed for broad delts and lats, a tight waist, and defined legs that did not detract from the upper body. Decide for yourself how much you agree with his vision of the ideal male physique. Speaking of which, a tight, chiseled core is at the center of his vision. If you share that vision, practice vacuums and exercise your abs daily at high volume and intensity and low weight. Speaking of which, low weight should be used if you're looking for definition, good shaping, and injury avoidance. And by low weight, I really just mean weight that you can control, weight that you can lift with strict form and set back down gently. Bulking broadens the waist. During a cut, you lose most of the muscle gained during the bulk, and the only people who can successfully put on a meaningful amount of muscle in a short period of time are teenagers and those enjoying anabolic steroids. It's best to maintain a comfortable year-round body fat percentage of 8 to 15% for men or 15 to 25% for women. Personally, I physically feel my best when I'm lean around 8 to 10% body fat, so why not feel that way all the time? Thank you so much for watching. Comment below what philosophies of Frank's that you think you'll try out, what you already do, what you'll modify, or what you see where he's coming from, but you'll respectfully tread a different path. Let me know what other athletes you'd like me to cover in future episodes of this series, whether they be classic era bodybuilders, modern bodybuilders, or any other type of athlete. And never forget that you are loved and have intrinsic value simply because you are alive. See ya!